I want you to go through your notes on our topic 2 title about value formation towards the practice of civil engineering. So we have 3 topics there. First is the Republic Act 544, which is an act to regulate the practice of civil engineering in the Philippines. And then the second is Republic Act 10912, which is Continuing Professional Development, or the CPD of 2016. And the third one is Republic Act 9266, an act providing for a more responsive and comprehensive regulation for the registration, licensing, and practice of architecture, repealing for the purpose Republic Act number 545 as amended, otherwise known as an act to regulate the practice of architecture in the Philippines and for other purposes. Maybe some of you wondered why we are including the Republic Act 9266 or this Republic Act 545, which it talks about more on architecture. However, there are lots of cases which deals with conflicts and issues in between civil engineering and architecture. That is why you need to know and you need to be informed what's the difference between an architect and a civil engineer. But right now, we need to tackle first the RA 544, which is the act to regulate the practice of civil engineering in the Philippines. Okay. Since I have uploaded these notes already last week, I want you to open it, considering that you have already your soft copy. Now, the title of this is The Act Shall Be Known as the Civil Engineering Law. And then, of course, you have there for section 2 the definition of terms. A, the practice of civil engineering within the meaning and intent of this act shall embrace services in the form of consultation, design, preparation of plans, specifications, estimates, erection, installation, and supervision of the construction of streets, bridges, highways, railroads, airports, and hangars, port works, canals, rivers, and shore improvements, lighthouses, and dry docks, buildings, fixed structures for irrigation, flood protection, drainage, water supply and sewerage works, demolition or permanent structures, and funnels. The enumeration of any work in this section shall not be construed as excluding any other requiring civil engineering knowledge and application. Okay, it is because once you will be working in the real world as a civil engineer, there could be some confusions with regards to handling with your clients. First issue is that there could be a misconception of some clients where they prefer, like they are confused whom to contact to if they want to build a certain structure, whether they are going to contact an architect or a civil engineer. So with this guide that we are discussing right now, it would help you figure out and advise your clients if whether they should contact an architect immediately or contact a civil engineer, to avoid the overlapping of work in between the two professions. Second is the term civil engineer as used in this act shall mean person duly registered with the board for civil engineers in the manner as hereinafter provided. Okay. So to be considered as duly registered with the board for civil engineers, it means that you should have completed your Bachelor of Science in Civil Engineering course and passed the licensure for civil engineers. However, there are those who graduated this course in BSCE, but sad to say that they have not passed the civil licensure yet, civil engineering licensure, but still they are doing some job in the civil engineering world or practicing the work as a civil engineer. However, they cannot do the signatory, or their work is not that as official like those who really passed in the licensure for civil engineering. That is why after or once you graduated your Bachelor of Science in Civil Engineering course, while it is still fresh, you should take the board exam. Like usually if you graduated in the month of March, and then you should take the board exam in the month of November. Okay, so that comprises the Article 1 of RA number 544. For the Article 2, it talks about the Board of Examiners for Civil Engineers. And here we have Section 3, Composition of Board. Within 30 days after the approval of this Act, there shall be created a Board of Examiners for Civil Engineers, hereinafter referred to as the Board, to be composed of a chairman and 2 members who shall be appointed by the President of the Philippines. Upon recommendation of the Commission of PRC, or the Professional Regulatory Commission, the members of the board shall hold office for a term of 3 years after appointment, or until their successors shall have been appointed and shall have qualified. The first members of the board the first members of the board appointed under this act shall hold office for the following terms: 1 member for 1 year, 1 member for 2 years, and 1 member for 3 years. Each member of the board shall qualify by taking the proper oath of office before entering upon the performance of his duties. Any member of the board may be removed by the President of the Philippines upon recommendation by the Professional Regulation Commission for neglect of duty, incompetency, malpractice, unprofessional and ethical, immoral, or dishonorable conduct. After having been given opportunity to defend himself in a proper administrative investigation, provided that during the process of investigation, the President of the Philippines, upon the recommendation of the PRC, shall have the power to suspend such member under the investigation and shall appoint a temporary member in his place. Thus, Vacancies in the board shall be filed for the unexpired term only. So this is talking about the composition of board of directors in the PRC, or what has been known as the Professional Regulation Commission. So what is PRC, or the Professional Regulation Commission? So PRC is the office where is the office where you have to take, or it is the one who regulates the licensure for all professionals in the Philippines. So basically, this board of directors are the ones creating the questionnaire for your future licensure exam. Therefore, the President of the Philippines is really keen in choosing and recommending who should be part of the board, because it is so crucial. It is so crucial to pick this honest, reliable civil engineers to be part of the board. It's because the future of the duly registered civil engineers in the country will always rely on their performance. Okay, just consider that the president had chosen a wrong or a dishonest board of directors. So basically, leakage of answers could be available anytime, and then the board exam for licensure of civil engineer will no longer be that clean. Therefore, it should be the board of directors should compose those competent, reliable, and as what has been described here, that will not do any malpractice or unprofessional or unethical or immoral act towards the licensure exam for civil engineering. Can you imagine if if your father could be part of the board of examiners, but based on the code of ethics, never use the advantage, even if one of the board of directors of PRC is a relative of yours? Always remember that we should always do a fair play work ethics here. Now, let us proceed to section 4, powers and duties of the board. The Board of Civil Engineers is vested with authority conformable with the provisions of this Act to administer oaths, issue, suspend, and revoke certificates of registration for the practice of civil engineering, issue certificates of recognition to civil engineers already registered under this Act for advanced studies, research, and or highly specialized training in any branch of civil engineering, subject to the approval of the PRC, to investigate such violations of this Act and the regulations thereunder as may come to the knowledge of the board, and for this purpose issue subpoena and subpoena juices at least TICOM to secure appearance and witness in connection with the charges presented to the board to inspect at least once a year educational institutions offering courses. Okay, I'm lost. So, to investigate such violations of this act and the regulations thereunder as may come to the knowledge of the board, and for this purpose issue subpoena and subpoena duces TICOM to secure appearance of witnesses in connection with the charges presented to the board to inspect at least once a year educational institutions offering courses in civil engineering works, projects, or corporations established in the Philippines, and for safeguard of life, healthy, and property, the engineering profession in the Philippines. For the purpose of this act, the Director of Public Works and or his authorized representative in the provinces and chartered cities shall be ex officio agents of the board, and such it shall be their duty to help in the enforcement of the provisions of this act. The board may, with approval of the PRC, issue such rules and regulations as may be deemed necessary to carry out the provisions of this act. The board shall also adopt a code ethics in the practice of civil engineering and have an official seal to authenticate its official documents. So these are the basic duties of the Board of Civil Engineers in the PRC. So basically, it has been stated here clearly what to do, what their purpose is, why they are there in the position. So we better understand well why their role is also important. It's really important. It's not also, it's really important in our course. So now let us continue for section 5, which is the qualifications of board members. Each member of the board shall, at the time of his appointment, be a citizen and a resident of the Philippines. And second, he or she should be at least 30 years of age and of good moral character. Third is be a graduate of civil engineering from a recognized and legally constituted school, institute, college, or university. Fourth, he or she should be a registered civil engineer duly qualified to practice civil engineering in the Philippines. Fifth, he or she have practiced civil engineering with a certificate as such for a period of not less than 10 years prior to his appointment. So it should be, you should have such experience to be qualified, not only be a graduate of civil engineering or a duly registered civil engineer, but also has to have at least 10 years of work experience with certificate as a proof. And sixth, he or she should not be a member of the faculty of any school, institute, college, or university where civil engineering course is taught, nor have a pecuniary interest in such institutions. Why they are emphasizing this is because there could be some biased performance later if one of the board of directors could be a faculty of a certain school or university. Say sample, of course, it cannot be avoided that, say sample, one of your faculty here in Silliman is part of the board of examining. Of course, for the goal of bringing the passing rate of the university that he or she is teaching, then he or she could be enticed of giving some favor towards the university that he or she is part of, which is a big no-no. And seventh, no former members of the faculty of any school, institute, or university where civil engineering is taught can become a member of the board unless he had stopped teaching for at least 3 consecutive years. So again, even if he or she is no longer part of the university, but there could be a certain years that prove that he or she is no longer part of such school, like at least 3 consecutive years that he or she is no longer teaching in that school, just to give PRC the confidence that he or she will no longer give some future bias favor towards such university. Okay, section 6, fees and compensation of board. The board for civil engineers shall charge for each application for examination the sum of 100 payable to the collecting and disbursing officer of the PRC upon filing of said application, and for each certificate of registration, 50 pesos. Each member of the board shall receive a compensation of 15 pesos for each applicant examined. A civil engineer in the service of the government of the Republic of the Philippines appointed as member of the board shall receive the compensation as herein provided in addition to his salary in the government. All authorized expenses of the board, including the compensation provided for herein, shall be paid by the collecting and disbursing officer of the PRC out of such appropriation as may be made for the purpose. So we are advised to check further in RA 6511 and Presidential Decree 223. But for now, at least we have we learned about their compensation and fees and how it goes. So aside from their basic salary provided by the government, they will also receive an additional compensation for each applicant who will take the licensure exam for civil engineering. And we can keep, if you want to keep track of that, then you can search if because in a year there are 2 batches of examinations that will be done to civil engineering. and that is commonly during November, in the month of November and in the month of May. So you can trace that in the website of PRC as to like how many examinees had applied in this month of May in this year, or month of November in this year, and then you will have some knowledge with regards to their additional fees on top of their basic salaries. That is if you are interested to know about it. Maybe some of you are planning to be part of the board of directors for civil engineering. Section 7, Annual Report. The board shall, at the end of each fiscal year, submit to the PRC a detailed report to its activities and proceedings during the period covered by the fiscal year ended. Okay, so fiscal year depends. Your fiscal year can start from January 1 and ends to December 31. So you should, if you are part of the board, then you should be like obliged to make an annual report of what you have been doing all throughout the fiscal year. Okay, so I will stop here and then we'll just continue in the next video for the Article 3, and we stop in Article 2 and then let us proceed to Article 3 to 5 in the next video.